Hello, everyone in the 5 continents, and welcome to another edition of our International English Online meetings. This morning, we have Dr. Debra Suarez, who is going to share about 1 hour with us and her expertise and her work. Thank you so much, dear Debra, for having accepted our invitation on a Sunday morning.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Absolute honor. I love these meetings. And anytime that you invite me, I'll show up.
I'll keep that in mind, dear Debra. Where are you? I love the landscape behind you.
Well, actually, at the moment, I'm in Florida, but the picture behind me is from a trip to New Zealand I took. My husband and I took several years ago. So this is a photo of the South Island.
Yes, thank you so much for letting us know about that. Now, let me share my screen so we can know what we are going to do the following minutes and also the following webinars. Let me see, here it is. It always takes a few seconds. Okay, here it is. Well, welcome everyone to our work community of educators. So today is our, sorry, there is a problem here. It's our 100, excuse me. Give me a few seconds, please. Okay. It's coming. It's opening. Okay, here it is. So as I was saying, welcome to our 126 International English Online meeting. This is where you can contact me. This is our YouTube channel, my Facebook, and my WhatsApp number if anybody wants to present here. So who are our next guest speakers? Well, next Sunday is our last meeting this year, our 126 or 27, sorry. Marisol, Raj, Jill, and Ilka will be talking about the power of love and gratitude. Okay, then next year, in February, because January is holidays for me, we'll have Monica Rodriguez from Argentina. She will be talking about the power of social neuroscience in learning. Beautiful topic, okay? And then Rafael Cervantes, Marisol Guzman, and Alberto Moreno from MS-TESOL, they will start the first group of TESOL Association presentations next year. I already have confirmation from Panama TESOL, Ecuador TESOL, Bolivia TESOL, Puerto Rico TESOL, Paraguay TESOL. Wow, so people from these TESOL associations will be presenting. Then in March, my new friend, Jovana Sikovic from Serbia, she will be talking about tips for effective material design. A good friend from Australia, James Swissler, he will be talking about reworking social linguistic competence in additional language teaching. Okay, who is our speaker today? Debra Suarez. A few things about Debra Suarez. Sorry that I took this photograph from your Facebook. Debra Suarez is currently president of TESOL International Association. With an unwavering belief in the power of education to change the world, she has dedicated her professional life to improving the educational experiences of ELT students and teachers and members of minority populations throughout the US and the world. What else can we say? Her professional roles have progressed through positions often held by TESOL and TEFL professionals. She sees her career in 3 broad stages. 1, as classroom teacher, 2, as university professor, and 3, as international consultant, as senior federal advisor. Wow, this is a beautiful photograph. Debra holds a Ph.D. in language education and MS-TESOL and an MBA degree specializing in education Business Management. Dr. Suarez is a published peer-reviewed author, publishing 2 books, book chapters and journal articles. Her current research is focused on developing impactful TESOL leaders. So thank you so much, dear Debra, for the time you are going to spend with us and your expertise. So thank you everyone in the 5 continents, people who are present and people who are watching us and listening to us in Facebook Live. Debra, go on, the screen's yours.
Thank you so much. And I love seeing the photos that you put up. Thank you.
Thank
Those
you.
those Christmas photos were from, I think, last year when we did a tour of the White House. The White House opens up the doors for the Christmas decorations, so that's always a lot of fun. And thank you for sharing the photos from different conferences with all of my professional friends. So I guess I just want to say hello to everybody there. I have my big cup of coffee. I see some of you have. I love these meetings, Jaime. It's friends sitting around the kitchen table with our cups of coffee, or maybe, sodas, depending on what time it is in the world. But we're sitting around, I feel like we sit around the kitchen table talking, and I just love it. I love what you've created and what everybody has created. I just want to say that you, Jaime, and Raj, and everybody here, and this group has impacted my life. I don't attend as often this past year as I have in the past because I just so much, and we're all so busy. But you've impacted my life, Jaime, what you've done here, because not only do you bring us together to talk about ideas and methodologies, but you bring us together to talk about the personal part of teaching. The very first time you invited me, I talked about love.
Yeah, I
The
remember.
only, yeah, this is the only place where I feel really comfortable doing that. And the next time I talked about, I think, care. And today I'm talking about wisdom. So
Yeah.
you've enabled me to, talk about our profession from somewhat different spaces. So thank you for that. And I see your other speakers do very similarly. And I think you've created something and we've created something together that's very special. So let me share my screen. Call up my PowerPoint. And hopefully you're able to see my PowerPoint. Thank you for the thumbs up. Okay, so again, this is a space. I love this space because, whoops, I feel like I can sort of play around with ideas. And so today I'm sharing with you notions of wisdom and what that means for me, notions of wisdom and what that means for me, for teachers to inspire new possibilities. And so I'm making connections with wisdom and inspiring new possibilities and ELT teacher leadership. So those are the connections that I'm making today. And I think, oops, I think I just lost my PowerPoint.
We can see it.
Oh, you can. Okay, let me
Yeah,
see.
you just have to expand it.
There it is. Okay, great. So thank you for going on this journey with me in the next several minutes. So let me just start by talking about challenges in ELT education programs. So no matter where in the world I travel to, no matter where in the United States I travel to, meeting with teachers, I see challenges. And some of the challenges in our profession include shortage of qualified English teachers. Quite often, there are lots of people who might speak English, but that's very different from being a qualified English teacher, somebody who has studied methodology, somebody who has credentials, and around the world, including in different states in the United States, there just aren't enough. So I see that as a challenge. I also see limited resources for English education. And it's very odd that, sometimes resources are there for science education or math education, but not enough for language education, and sometimes not enough for English education. So in different contexts, that could be not having access to textbooks or technology, and sometimes unequal access to professional development. For example, what you're doing here, Jaime, you've opened this to the world, these professional development opportunities from your seminars here, but not everybody, not all teachers have access or equal access. And then, of course, there are challenges about high teacher turnover. And these are challenges for programs, programmatic challenges. And of course, if we were to talk more, and we will talk more about this, I'm sure that you would add other challenges that you see. However, in spite of the challenges, we always have hope, just as was shared, even though there's electricity being turned off at a certain time of night, you've turned that into a positive. I'll just take a break. So in spite of challenges, there are opportunities for innovation and sustainable change. So some opportunities include pre-service teacher education, in-service professional development, then, of course, apprenticeship models, the apprenticeship where mentoring and coaching. But what I'm talking about is leadership development. This is the connection that I'm making with especially teacher leadership. So teacher leadership is what I'm talking about. Now, teacher leadership has been found to address many challenges and improve the overall quality and success of large-scale implementation of English language educational programs. So teacher leadership is a body of literature, research literature that's been around a while. You can find good research that has been done in teacher leadership for many years. And so we know a lot about teacher leadership. And one of the things that we have found, that researchers have found, is that teacher leadership can address many of these challenges that I just talked about, starting at the classroom and school level. At the same time, not enough research has been done looking at teacher leadership for English language teachers. So if there's anyone out there looking for a research topic, you may be interested in looking at teacher leadership in English language teaching, especially English as a foreign language.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what is teacher leadership for a moment. And I would like to just sort of pause and ask all of you, when you hear the term teacher leader, what do you think about? When you hear that, just come off chat. I'm sorry, just come off mute or put in the chat box. When you hear the term teacher leader or teacher leadership, what do you think about?
Somebody that will not step up to the situation when one of the school owners or authorities say no to one of your projects. It's like, I'll find my way.
I love it. I love that phrase, to step up. One of the phrases that I like to use is to lead from where we stand. We lead from where we stand. Thank you. Anyone else would like to share their idea about what is teacher leadership?
Well, you just mentioned it, Deborah. It talks about leading from wherever you are, because you don't always have to be at the front of the room to lead. You can, and also to find new ways in how to provide leadership, innovative ways of providing leadership, not necessarily just from a power position.
Exactly. You don't have to be delegated authority. You don't have to have delegated authority to influence and to lead.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's go back to the slide. So As I've said, teacher leadership as a field has been around for a while, and there are different definitions of teacher leadership, but you know what? There is an idea across all of the definitions. So across all of the definitions, what is in common is that teacher leaders will lead their fellow teachers in improving student achievement, teaching, and learning. So there's a lot here. Teacher leaders will lead from where we stand. And where do we stand? We stand in the classroom. We stand in the schools. And what do we look to impact? We look to impact student achievement. So even though definitions vary, this is consistent across all of them. Teacher leadership has been found to be the influence that teachers have upon student achievement. Now, we can impact student achievement even when we're impacting something that is happening in policy or something that is happening in the community, but we're always looking at impacting student achievement by changing something in core functions of teaching and learning. Some more ideas about teacher leaders: that teacher leaders will lead their fellow teachers in improving student achievement, teaching, and learning. So now I'd like to just open up the conversation to what are some issues or questions or problems in your school, challenges, issues, questions, or problems in your school, and how can teacher leadership address those challenges? So just I shared some challenges at the national level, but let's talk about some challenges that we face every day. Now, for example, some of the challenges could be limited access to resources. Some of the challenges could be not having enough time to do lesson planning. Some of our challenges could be even not having enough time or resources to develop our own English language skills. That is an issue. So I would just want to open up the conversation. When you think about challenges that you face on a daily basis, what are some of those challenges at the classroom or school level? Lesson planning, time.
In my case, it will be time to provide sufficient and quality feedback to my students, because it's time consuming and I don't have the time to do it within the time of the class. I have to find out the time to do it outside. And technology has been helpful, but since I'm a people person, I would like to do it face to face, but I do not have the option considering the schedule of the school or the classes. So for me, is that time not enough to provide enough feedback also to my students.
So when you're saying feedback to your students, are you talking about like language students' feedback on their writing, their speaking, or just in general their work in the school, in the class?
In the classes that I'm now, at this moment, it will be feedback for improving the writing. It's one way to think. I always make the joke, like, you're thinking like an Ecuadorian, you're thinking in Spanish. It's way too different to write in English. It's a different grammar. We have different ways of writing, and especially if you are training your students to start academic writing. So for them, I don't know, I have a feeling that I could give more. I could guide more.
Thank you so much for sharing. And that is something that is a challenge that all of us share as language teachers, having the time to give feedback, especially on their productive skills, right? Looking at their writing, looking at their listening to speech samples. Okay, thanks for sharing. And I see in the chat box, somebody says, because I don't see the name, Sylvina, thank you, Sylvina, for participating. At the same time, there is so much available that it can be overwhelming. Yes, how do we sort our way through all of the information that's out there for us so that we come to following good information, reliable information? Nice. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to share?
Well, thank you for letting me participate, Debra. So, well, in Peru, for example, there are many socioeconomic factors, like, for example, as you said, as you mentioned, limited resources and materials, for example, audiovisual aids and some digital tools, and economic hardships, for example, students from low-income families sometimes prioritize survival needs over education. And I think it's a matter of information for family, for parents, no? They don't consider, for example, English so important, so relevant, because for them, just maths or Spanish language or maybe science are the main subjects in schools. And there is also a low parental involvement, I think, because parents might not support their children learning, um, especially in our subject. So I think those three are the main ones. Can I mention?
Thank you. Yes, there's a lot in what you shared there, and I have heard that from teachers in different parts of the world that that sometimes English teachers have to defend the value of teaching English. That sometimes that value isn't readily seen with parents, and sometimes not even with school administrators sometimes. So having to demonstrate and having to build the value and having people understand that, in addition to the other challenges that you've shared. Thank you. All right, so let's go back to the PowerPoint and continue thinking about those challenges. So where I'm headed is that teacher leadership and how we enact teacher leadership within our own context can help us to address many of our challenges. So let's come to wisdom. And so practicing leadership, right? That's what we're talking about, practicing teacher leadership to address real problems or real challenges in our classrooms and our schools. Well, what's wisdom got to do with it? So I want to just talk about this quote that I love, because for me, this is very, it resonates with me about what do we mean by wisdom. Wisdom is the ability to think and act using knowledge, experience, understanding, common sense, and insight. Okay, so wisdom is the ability to think and act using all of this from our experience, just being alive, being professionally alive, being alive in this world. But, and here's the big but that resonates with me, but it transforms into something truly powerful when it is shared. We help
Definitely.
others. Sorry?
No, sorry, I was thinking, speaking up. Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, I thank you. Please jump in anytime, because I can't, when I go to my PowerPoint, I can't see the video boxes. So please jump in anytime.
Okay.
Thank you. So, so wisdom transforms into something powerful when it is shared, and we help others think about their situations in an entirely new light and encourage possibilities to emerge. And I really love this. It's not just enough to have been alive and to have experienced many things, but we need to share it. And by sharing that wisdom, that's where we can help others innovate new possibilities. So please take a screenshot of this if you like. I find this pretty powerful. And we've kind of already talked about this reflection question, what is an issue or problem? But I want to come to some examples that I've heard in different contexts. Grading essays, using a variety of language skills, lesson planning, and how to use technology in the classroom. So the way that I'm connecting teacher leadership and wisdom is looking at wisdom as sharing, right? Wisdom is our experience, but also wisdom as sharing. And very practically based, I think that teacher groups are good mechanisms or good tools to demonstrate teacher leadership, to take teacher leadership, and to lead each other from where we stand. Now, I have here a list of 6 different types of teacher groups, and I know many of these are not new. That's okay. And there are many more, but there are 6 that I would like to share. First is a professional learning community, which is anything, which is kind of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
But different types of professional learning communities. Another teacher group is English language practice circles. And that can be often where teachers, especially in contexts where English is not the language of the community, where it can be difficult to practice our own English language skills. So we can put together English language practice circles. And this is something that I've done in different contexts, and I will work with teachers on how to do this, but you're just getting a sample here. Of course, there are teacher groups engaging in mentoring and coaching, teacher groups sharing instructional techniques. Then there's teacher groups where we come together and we can design joint materials together. And then, of course, teaching groups where we reflect on what we've been doing together. So those are just 6, but there are many. Now let's come back to teacher leadership, because I'm trying to connect these thoughts together. So some characteristics of effective teacher leaders, again, coming from the literature. So teacher leaders can do 3 things. That should be 1, 2, 3, not 1, 2, 2. First, we access knowledge about our field, and we can all do that. And one of the participants said, but there's so much information out there. Of course. So accessing knowledge about our field includes being critical thinkers, being able to look at what's out there and to say, this is a good source, this is maybe not as good a source, but accessing knowledge about our field. Secondly, generating knowledge. We don't just, absorb knowledge. We are teachers. We generate knowledge. We take knowledge about the field, and we will work with that and implement in our classrooms and our own context in our own ways. And by doing that, we are generating knowledge. We generate knowledge about our own students, our own classrooms, and our schools. This is especially important in contexts where often these ideas about methodology or pedagogy come to us from outside, and somehow we're just supposed to put it into practice in our context. It doesn't work that way. We know it doesn't. We know we need to take those ideas that come from outside and make them work in our own context, our own students, our own parents, our own communities. And thirdly, effective teacher leaders then construct and carry out classroom-based teacher-initiated solutions. So these are characteristics of effective teacher leaders. We can learn, we access knowledge, we can teach, we generate knowledge, and then 3, we carry out and we have action planning, carry out and construct classroom-based initiatives. Another important characteristic of effective teacher leaders, and this is really important, is that teacher leaders are data-driven. So when I do these workshops and I talk with teachers about challenges, I always say, let's talk about how you are seeing those challenges. What is the data that tells you that this is a challenge for your students, for your parents, and for your community? And it's important to talk about the data about the students, data about the parents, because otherwise we run the danger of just complaining to each other, right? And that is a drag. And we might start there. This is my challenge. This is my problem. But if we move beyond that, it's not just a gripe session or complaining to each other. Now we're saying, well, how do I know that's a challenge? And whatever you're talking about, I can look at my own schedule. I can look at how my schedule is affecting my student work. For example, my own schedule, I don't have enough time to give feedback the way I want to. And I know that's affecting my student work because I'm seeing them repeat the same issues. And if I had more time to talk with them about their writing, maybe they wouldn't be repeating the same issue. So that's just one example. So teacher leaders are data driven. And what is the data? It's our student work. So in other words, being data driven is key to teacher leadership. Looking carefully at student work is what separates teacher leadership development from other kinds of professional development. So looking at what we are now doing and how it might change core functions in that student achievement. So one other important concept, as we've said, is that teacher leadership starts at the classroom level. And I think Raj said this, or somebody said this, that we will lead, we will step up. We will step up, and I rephrase that in my way as we lead from where we stand. And we stand at the classroom and we stand in the school. So teacher leadership is work that is focused at the classroom level of practice and is likely, again, to show student effects more readily than work focused at the organizational level. So now I'd like to come back to our different teacher groups that I've been talking about and sort of say a little bit more about each of them. And there are more teacher groups, and some of these are not new, but if we bring them together again with this idea of wisdom, I think we can make this a little bit more meaningful. So here is a pyramid that I just like this because it's pulling together a lot of the information that I've shared here, the ideas that I want to connect. So if we start at the bottom there, if we start at looking at data, and the data again is looking at our students, our parents, our community. So what is the data? So it might be the data could, I'm trying to think of the examples that all of you have shared already. So let's talk about the challenge that sometimes teaching English is not seen as valuable as teaching math or science. What's the data? The data, how do we know that? The data could be what we hear from our principals or superintendents. The data could be we're not getting the books we need, we're not getting the money or the resources we need, but we see money and resources going to math and science. It could be that we don't have enough English teachers in the schools. So what's the data? So teacher leadership starts by looking at the data. It's not enough to say, gosh, you know, they don't appreciate English teaching, but we need to see why. How do we know that? Once we have that data, we can then begin to share the information. So it's not enough to say to our fellow teachers, you know, I don't think that we are valued. English teaching is valued enough. Instead, or not instead, but in addition to that, we're sharing the data based on resources, based on what they're saying to us, based on the time we're given, based on the number of teachers we have. Now that's information. It's no longer simply personal opinion. Or if we're talking about a challenge as one challenge was shared, not having the time for giving feedback to students for writing and speaking, but we see that's data, and we can share that as English teachers giving responses to productive skills. That takes a lot more time than simply grading multiple choice tests. So our counterparts in other fields who are grading multiple choice tests, they may not need that same amount of time working with students, but we do. That's data, okay? And that shares our information. From that information, we can then begin to establish more knowledge, and then we begin to look for information. And then that will come to, the idea will then to lead us to wisdom, because it's not simply step by step, but we go back and forth. And this is where that wisdom from our knowledge, our experience, from what we know, and then we share with others. I'm going to pause. And before I go on to teacher groups, I'd like to just get your feedback so far. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. You see how I'm pulling together teacher leadership wisdom, and then addressing these challenges. So I'd like to pause and just get a feeling from all of you for what you're seeing so far and what your feedback is on this framework that I've shared. So what might be your feedback so far on the framework?
I just want to add something to what you said, Deborah. That I love your pyramid idea. You know, the whole needs of hierarchy, Maslow model type thing. It's like, you know, knowledge is learning something new, and wisdom is letting go of something that's no longer serving us. So and putting that on top of the pyramid really resonates for me, because we can keep gathering data and forget to let go of some things that are no longer relevant, but it adds to the database.
Yep, I love that. Yeah, that's right. And continually evolving and something that's no longer, yeah. Thank you.
Evolving from the knowledge and the wisdom, like both.
I do love that because it also goes to the idea that we're not just the experts, right? That we're continuing to learn, and others, our fellow teachers, are also experts, and we listen to them and we learn from them and we grow together.
And notice what's still relevant.
And what might not be as relevant in this changing landscape that we have. Thank you. Any other ideas that you'd like to share?
You know, I'm always ready to share, but I don't want to monopolize the the conversation. I don't know if anybody else is willing to share something else.
Just go on, Ilka, and then somebody else will, yeah, please.
All right. Well, when I was reading the word and you were talking about the importance of data, my example that I would like to share is very simple. When I used to teach in a high school for girls, Catholic school, it really bothered me how many times my class was interrupted because somebody got in and had a short announcement, or they wanted to say that a party was going to be organized, or came in and say, you know, they're going to take the uniform sizes such and such. So it really, really bothered me. But then I thought, like, how can I show the others that this is a problem? Because if I do have 45 minutes class and somebody comes and interrupts, you know, probably twice in a week and interrupts for 5 minutes, I don't have a 45 minutes class. So what we did was collect, you know, take notes, like I was interrupted 2 minutes because of such reason and person. And at the end of the trimester, 3 months, to put it on the slide and letting everybody see, like, how many times my English class was interrupted, how many minutes I lost because of such and such reason. It was helpful not only for me to see that I had that problem, but also the other English teachers that probably needed to do exactly the same thing. But in the long run, I mean, the whole school was aware, like, there are other ways to communicate students, whatever they have to be informed with, but in another way, like take 1 minute in the General Assembly, or I don't know, during lunchtime or something like that, but just stop interrupting. I said, just stop interrupting my classes, okay? Why it has to be only English class? I mean, why don't you do it in the first hour in the last period? You have to be aware that we have a problem as an English department. And that really helped. That really helped. The next time that somebody was going to tell you, oh, no, sorry, I'm not interrupting. It's like, just go ahead. It's a detail, but really bugged me. And it helped the whole institution. Like, you need to organize yourself. You need to manage the time in a better way and just stop interrupting my class. That's it. That's what I wanted to
What
say.
a great example. I love that. You know, you're saying that it was something simple, but really not. You took the data and you took the data at different points in time, and you were able, there are very few teachers who are going to say, I don't need more time in my class. Very few people are going to say that. You collected the data and you made a change. That's like the perfect example of what I'm talking about. You showed that leadership and you collected the data, you taught somebody else. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
I see in the chat, Luis says, how do we know we need to evolve as teachers? What are the signs? That's a great question. And I'll share my thoughts. I think we all have thoughts on that. That's great. I would say as soon as I feel comfortable, as soon as I feel I'm all comfortable and I know everything, I know it's time for me to shake things up. So would anyone else like to share their thoughts on Luis's insight?
Anybody else? Zulema from Bolivia. We have Paola Ortega, Marian Cajima from Peru, Zulema Samami, or anybody else?
Well,
yeah, please go on, dear Evelyn.
okay. In my case, I felt what I mentioned, that English was not as important as a subject as others. So, well, this year I implemented a project of going out from school. So this year I have 4th graders in a secondary level, and I took them to Barranco to speak to tourists and to show, to highlight a little bit the English area. So now next year my project was good for the authorities at school, and next year we will have new textbooks. So and they're going to we are going to have more budget in order to have more resources for students. So I think that is a matter of highlighting the area, highlighting the what Debra mentioned about the learnings of students, making the parents involved in our actions, talking to them. It's a matter of that. Well, I can share that.
Thank you very much for sharing. And I love it because now you're going into the space of advocacy, right? And that you're taking it to that one next step. So of course we're advocating for ourselves as teachers, but we're also advocating for our students in what we're doing. And then the example you gave, also extending to parents. Thank you for sharing. Then Louise put in the chat, I like what Evelyn did. Students using the language in real situations is a highlight. Yes, very nice. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, let's go back to, I'm not seeing any other hands. Thank you so much. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. So I want to talk about each one of these learning communities. And when I do this workshop, it's actually a much longer workshop. So you're just getting a sampling, but that's okay. So professional learning communities can actually be many different kinds, but professional learning community. So what might be the purpose? To create a community where teachers generate classroom-based shared concerns, questions, problems. So how does it work? It kind of works what we just did here, but let's take a look at this slide. So coming together as teachers, first we can write a list of individual concerns. And I do this in my workshops, helping my teachers I model a professional learning community, and we go through these steps. First thing I do is I ask the teachers, by yourself, don't talk yet, on your own piece of paper, just generate a list of individual concerns that you have. And they'll write things like lesson planning, not having enough time, not having enough resources, etc. Kind of like what we did today. Then I ask them to come together and to share their lists and to begin to talk about well, this is what I have on my list. This is what, and they'll talk about it very passionately. And sometimes they'll have issues in common. Sometimes a teacher will say, you know, I don't really see that as an issue. And then that opens up the conversation for the teacher to say, well, it is an issue because, and that's where data especially comes in handy. So they'll talk about it. And then I ask them in their groups, small groups, to agree, to come up, to identify one common mutual concern that they all share. Just one. And then at that point, we say, well, we're going to focus on this one issue. And now from your small group, choose 2 teachers to take the lead. 2, maybe 3, depends on the size of the group. So choose 2 of you who will lead just for this short period of time, who is going to lead the group in looking at that issue or challenge. And it could be different things, how they're going to look at it. Maybe they'll have a reflection discussion. Maybe it will be a book group, discussion group, or research, whatever the activity is. Also, I suggest to establish a time limit. It could be that this group is going to work on this issue for 3 weeks, 1 month, but it's really important to establish a time frame because teachers are busy. This is all work that we're doing together as a professional learning community, so it's typically on our own time. So if we establish a time frame when we start, the middle, and when it's over, it's much better. It'll make it more likely that the teachers will continue. And then after you go through the process of using one of the other models, then you can pick a different issue. So what are some of the benefits of this general model? This is a general model, is that it's time bound, it's classroom based, but it's a shared concern, and that we take turns leading. Now, there are different kinds of models. Let's continue. So you could have an English language practice circle. Let's say that the one mutual concern that the teachers came up with is, you know, we don't have the chance to develop our own English language proficiency. And this is something that does come up when I work with teachers in different contexts. We don't have time to develop our own English language proficiency, and that can influence me as an English teacher. Maybe I don't have as much confidence, right? And it's very frustrating that I don't have that time to professionally develop, or that ability to professionally develop my English. So an English language practice circle is one kind of professional community. So what is the purpose? To develop our own language proficiency, to increase our own confidence, and also to practice learning and teaching in a safe environment. So how does an English language practice circle work? Well, how it works is that teachers will practice teaching English lessons to each other. Very brief lessons, but you will take turns. At one point, you are definitely the teacher, and the other teachers are playing the role of student. And you will teach your lesson. You will teach, and you are teaching and the others are learning. So you will take turns being the teacher and being the student. So now, what is the benefit of this? The benefit is that we are teaching the lesson, so we're going to be developing our English skills. But then when we stop being the teacher and we all are teachers together and we talk about that lesson, not only are we developing our English skills, but guess what? When we talk about the lesson now as teachers, we are developing English language skills in the language of pedagogy, the language of methodology. And so that's a much higher level of English language skills. So again, an English language practice circle, the purpose is to practice teaching to each other. So we're developing whatever that language ability is. But then when we talk about that lesson, we are now using English to develop our language of pedagogy and methodology. And of course, we're then modeling and practicing. So there's a lot to be said here, but this is a nice sample of a certain kind of community. Engaging in mentoring and coaching is a third kind of community, and it is usually informal. This is not about evaluation. It's not about there's nothing scarier, and I include myself here. There's nothing scarier for a teacher than to have somebody come into your classroom taking notes, right?
Right.
That's a scary thing. But if we do it, because right, our heart goes into our teaching. But if it's informal and we agree together and it's not evaluative, and I, as the teacher, invite you in, and I might say, well, can you please pay attention to this part of my teaching? Then you give me feedback to reflect on and ask questions. That's very different. It's non-evaluative. Sharing instructional techniques. Now, this is a kind of professional learning group where we'll come together and we will share lesson plans, we will share formative and summative testing techniques, and then we can model practice and discuss together. And it may be as one teacher, I have 10 lesson plans, but if I work with my fellow teachers, I can now have 20 lesson plans, but work with them to make them fit my own classroom. Creating or supplementing joint materials. This is a little different from the one I just said. The one I just said, I'll go back to it. That is sharing instructional techniques. So this would really work for mutual English teachers. But this one, co-creating or supplementing, and I see this a lot in environments where often the math classes get more time or the science classes get more time, or what you want to do is combine or kind of work together with the math teacher, with the science teacher, and co-create materials. So this can be across English language teachers, but also across and with content area teachers. Can you bring what is the math teacher working on? Can you then use those content ideas in your English language class? Bring in the English language, the language of math, bring in the language of science, and you can adjust that given to give different grade levels or different practice levels. So this is a little different from the number 4 and sharing instructional techniques with your fellow English language teachers. This is working with content teachers, but then again, modeling, practicing, and revising. And the last one is reflecting upon what you've done. So taking turns posing questions for deliberation for each one of the different sessions that you have. What is the evidence that your students are now learning from the changes that you've made? Is there evidence? Is there data? What strategies are you using during teaching that you have changed? In what ways are your teaching methods challenging to students? Do student outcomes reflect a genuine understanding of the material? If any students are having challenges, why? There are many different questions. These are just some reflection questions. And one of my favorite is the very last, which is what makes for a good lesson? That is a good one. Pose that to your fellow teachers. What makes for a good lesson? And you will have very interesting conversations. So I would offer that some of these groups here, if you want to start practicing within your own community, these are some groups that you can do. And you know what? You have, or at least you will have my email. Connect with me. If you have a question, if you try to put this together and you have a question that you want to ask me, hey, Deborah, we're doing this, are we following the steps? Do you have other ideas? Please email me or please connect with me on LinkedIn. And of course, there are many different types of teacher groups, not just the 6 that I'm talking about here today. And lastly, I want to say that leadership is not something that is just handed out. It's up to us ourselves to step up to the plate, to lead from where we stand. It's up to us to locate and use opportunities for professional growth, just like we're doing here, to increase our own qualifications and our credibility for leadership. So as we continue to engage as teacher leaders, we do want to think about how do we keep those volunteers engaged? How do we keep up the momentum? Last point I want to share, I know we have some administrators in the group, and administrators can support and sustain teacher leadership by giving release time, give space. Is there a classroom that we can use? Give stipends for some attending conferences or sharing books. So the last thing I want to turn to is the question, based on what I've shared, and I know I've shared a lot, how do you think teacher leadership might be powerful in your context? How do you think teacher leadership might be powerful in your context? I think that it is, but it's up for each of us as individuals to decide. And I think we can do it one teacher at a time and one school at a time. And here is my LinkedIn, my QR code. Please connect with me if you'd like. And I would love to connect with you. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come back to the reflection question. Based on, I know I've shared a lot of ideas, but if you have any thoughts on how teacher leadership could help you in your context, please share now.
Well, I guess we all have lots of thoughts, dear Debra. I've been quiet, listening to you and thinking and reflecting and feeling like, wow, there is a lot of work to do and we can do. And the point is, do we want to do it? Do we want to be the first ones? If nobody else is doing that in our job, in our institution, in our university, let's be one of them. Why not? Well, we have some people here, Monica, Fernanda, Dawn, Zulema, who else? Okay, Maria Nkajima, Evelyn, Paola Ortega. I don't know if one of them or some of them want to say something. They have some ideas. Anyone?
Arriving a bit late. I'm just trying to catch up with whatever went on here. So I would appreciate if you could repeat the question that you posed for the group. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Fernanda. So the final reflection question is, so based on what I've shared, how do you think teacher leadership might be helpful in your own context,
Yeah, go on, dear Evelyn.
Oh, well, okay. So for me, teacher leadership can significantly impact educational context, especially in a school that face challenges like, for example, in my case, low parental involvement and sometimes socioeconomic constraints. For example, um, and well, I think it could help, for example, driving positive change in my school, like role modeling, as Debra suggested. Teachers, leaders can demonstrate effective classroom management, empathy, innovating teaching strategies, inspiring our colleagues also to adopt similar approaches and highlight the outcomes of the students. So I think for me, I'm going to take that. Excellence.
Thank you, dear
Thank you
Evelyn.
very
Yeah, thank you, dear Evelyn, for your contributions. Anyone else, please?
Hello, I'll jump in. It's so good to see you, Deborah. Thank you so much. And I was thinking and I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I'm thinking of transformative teacher leadership, which is, everything that that you highlight. And as far as the context here in the Southwest in the United States and in New Mexico, and with that focus on taking our work into the greater world. I'm thinking of the role of teachers as leaders in communities, as leaders, taking our work beyond, integrated through and beyond the classroom, and really promoting and especially thinking about the ideals of TESOL and all of those. And so that's where my mind goes when you pose that question, is teachers as transformative leaders.
Thank you,
love
dear
it.
Dawn.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thank you, Dawn. And I put in the chat, thank you, because you're pulling other ideas together and and building on what Evelyn shared as well. So transformative, right? Transformative leadership always comes to impacting change, right? having an impact, having a change. And then there's a body of literature that I love. It's responsible leadership. And that's kind of what Evelyn was talking about. Responsible leadership is enacting care and empathy, justice, and that impacts change as well. So thank you, Dawn and Evelyn. Together, you brought those two bodies together. Yeah, and it comes back down to teacher leadership for our field. Thank you. I love it. Anyone else would you like to share?
Yeah, anyone else? Ilka, Raj?
Well, I think I loved the summary part of your work, Deborah, which talks about model, practice, discuss, and revise, because it's not static. We're constantly looking at how does this evolve? How does this fit? Where does input come in from? So it really just, it's on a continuum. Yeah, and in that is also demonstrating the leadership.
Thank you. Yes, that we are open to learning and changing ourselves. Absolutely. Yeah, demonstrating leadership. Thank you. And that's where the wisdom maybe comes in.
That what do I need to let go of?
Yeah. Not easy.
But I was thinking in a very, simple activities, we can start the change. Right now, I'm not teaching in high school level, but I would love to start changing in this way. What do I mean? Sometimes I felt that each teacher was the owner of the class, and they created different materials. And one of the things to start the change would be sharing the materials through creating in the time that we have, considering micro teaching from each teacher. So they will show how they use in a specific material. So at the same time, it's like you leading a class with probably 10, 15 minutes micro teaching, the others observing without using the word being observed, but at the same time, growing as a professional because I can use that and they can talk about it. And that will be the best way to start developing the learning, the growing, the teaching community from a simple act like, I use this activity, I like it, it worked with my students, let me share it with you. It's not like a big formal training thing, but it's to start. It's just starting the flame for the passion of leading and transforming the classes. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Irma in Ecuador. I don't know if anybody else has a comment or something. Yes, go on, dear Fernanda.
So one of the things that just came to mind is the teacher as a leader in the classroom. Because we usually talk about leadership when we already have the role of a leader, but it's very difficult to put yourself in a leadership position when you are in the classroom. So that's a reflection as well.
Thank you, dear Fernanda. Well, as I said before, dear Debra and everyone else, I was just listening to you and thinking and reflecting. And yes, go on, dear Zulema.
Okay, hello from Bolivia. Yeah, I agree. I think that it is difficult to put as leaders ourselves in our classroom because sometimes we have to do a lot of things. We have to analyze. We have to have strategies to overcome some things that we face in our classroom. In my case, I have classes, online classes with my students, and they are children. And it's different an online class with a face-to-face class, because in a face-to-face class, you have the 100% of the control of the class, because you can see what your students are doing, of if they are paying attention to you. But in online teaching, it's different because you can see if your students are paying attention. So in my case, I had to develop a lot of strategies in order to teach them, in order to make them pay attention to the class. So it is kind of difficult in online teaching to teach English to children especially.
Thank you,
My
dear.
opinion.
Yeah, thank you, dear Sulema. And as I was saying, I was thinking about the great job that you leaders in the TESOL Association do, in the TEFL Association they do, in Peru TESOL they do, and all the associations. And something that I have always highlighted is that the great leaders are ladies. And I was wondering why. And when I look at my mother, well, my mother is not here anymore, but that lady is the leader of the family. So you ladies have, fortunately, that power of being natural leaders. So I want to take advantage of this moment to thank you, Debra, and all the leaders who are female, who are ladies all over the world, who always teach me that to be a leader, you can be a housewife, you can be a teacher, but also you have time to be leaders. So that's what I have learned from you, Debra, from you, Fernanda, from you, Ilka, Raj, Dawn, and all the ladies, from Evelyn, and all the ladies. Everywhere I go, the teachers, the presidents, the leaders usually are ladies. So you must have something that we men don't have. So I just wanted to highlight that point of view, personal point of view. Anybody else who wants to thank Debra? Because this is the end.
Well, I want to thank Debra, and I also want to acknowledge you, Jaime, for
Yes.
creating this international community and bringing us all together.
You're a
thank-
leader.
Well, I
You are a
didn't
leader.
want to. I didn't want to. I don't want to. I just want to be another part of this community. But as I said before, if without you, Debra, without you, Ilka, without you, Raj, Don, and people like Fernanda always being, it couldn't be possible. It would be just me sitting here talking to myself. But thanks. So thank you so much. Anybody else? Thank you, dear President. Thank you so much. Anybody else?
No, just thank you, Debra. Fantastic presentation. Really
This
enjoy
was
it.
a lot
Thank
of
you.
fun. Thank you for engaging with me. And as always, thank you, Jaime and Raj and Ilke and everyone. This is wonderful. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And before saying goodbye, let me remind you our next and last meeting next Sunday, one week before Christmas. We will be talking about the power of love and gratitude. Everyone is invited to take part and speak up in this webinar. We will be talking about the power of love in education, in family, in life, in our work, and being grateful to our health, our jobs, our money, our time, everything. We have so much to be grateful for. So thank you, dear Debra. This is your time to say goodbye. And let me say that you can be the president of the presidents, but before that, you are a very humble human being. And that you said you write to me. And I'm sure that many people say, but she's the president and maybe she's, no, before being that, you have shown us that you are a humble lady, a humble mother, a humble wife. So thank you for that, dear Debra. So time for you to say goodbye, dear Debra.
Well, thank you again. And I look forward to being again here at the kitchen table with all of you, sharing our ideas. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Debra. Thank you, Ilka. Goodbye, Dawn, Fernanda, Raj, Evelyn, Zulema, Monique, and Paola Ortega, and everyone who was following in Facebook Live. Many people were were listening to us, dear Debra, and I'm sure that more people will be watching the video after we upload it in our YouTube channel. Goodbye. Have a nice Sunday and see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
And be safe, please.
And be safe. And be safe.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. And
Bye.
see you. And
Bless
see
you.
you, Raj and Ilka, next Sunday. Read
Yes.
the WhatsApp group messages. Mary has been writing something for us. Goodbye, Dawn. Say hi to your husband.
Bless you. Bye.
Bless you.